Hey, it's Mike, and if you're looking for one of the educational till we make, it's one of the tutorial videos that I make. There's about 1,000 of those for you to pick from here on the channel. This will not be one of those. This is an entirely different beast. The jumping off point for which is something that appears at the very beginning of every single till we make it, which is the lifestyle. And I'm going to pull the curtain back a little bit for you on my 2025, and I want to walk you month by month through my year. My years typically they start slow. So for me, January, February, even March, these are months where I tend to be a little more homebound, but that gave me an opportunity to connect with wrestling promotions all over the planet through my webinars. I taught groups in Brazil, Ecuador, Chile, Australia, all across the United States. I got South Africa for the first time, and a bunch more. But my year, at least in 2025, it really began in April. That's when I flew down to Australia, and my tour down there was made up of 2 legs, one in Canberra and one in an outlying area of Melbourne called Thomastown. So a couple things about my lifestyle on the road. Number 1, I always save an album that I haven't listened to for every trip that I go on. And I had 2 put aside, one for the Canberra leg, one for the Thomastown leg. My Canberra album, A.J. Croce's 2021 release, By Request. If you're not familiar, he is Jim Croce's son. He's a musical artist in his own right, a fantastic pianist, and the best track on the album is a cover of Billy Preston's 1974 hit, Nothing from Nothing. You should check it out. It's wonderful. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. Second thing, I play Pokemon Go everywhere that I go, and the playing down under was outstanding. Third, if the schedule permits, if I happen to have enough downtime, I always like to sneak out and play an escape room wherever I am. I'm an avid escape room player. In fact, I even created a couple escape rooms. I don't know how many longtime fans out there remember what the Golden Opportunity Caper is. But anyway, I was able to sneak out, and I got to play at Escape Rooms Canberra. They have a couple games there. I played Curio. It was excellent. And if I ever get the chance, I'm going back. They have another game that looks very intriguing called The House on the Hill. I also happen to have a little bit of downtime during the Thomastown leg of my Australia tour, so I trekked down to Melbourne proper to play the top-rated escape room in all of Australia. At least, that's according to the Turpica Awards, Top Escape Room Project. There I played the Curium Experience, and it was hands down the best escape room I played in all of 2025. Simply fantastic. On this leg of the tour, I had saved for myself an album by The Head and the Heart. I've become a big fan of theirs, and I associate their music with Australia. The first time I was there, I was listening to Signs of Light. But this new album of theirs, it does not hold a candle to that, or to Living Mirage for that matter. I have not yet heard their very newest album. This Australia tour featured the heaviest workload I've ever agreed to in my entire career. Cutting out the travel days, I was on the ground for just 9 days total in Australia, and in that time, I taught 19 seminars and did a match. Whenever, companies paying a bunch of money to fly me somewhere, especially the other side of the globe, I feel a lot of pressure to over-deliver. In hindsight, I probably should have never agreed to doing all of that in such a small period of time. It was not the right choice for me. And because, if I'm being realistic, I am in the autumn of my career now, I'm going to have to exercise better judgment about these things. This Australian tour really taught me something about my limits. Before my April was over, I had another chance to go up to New Hampshire and teach at the Next Gen Wrestling Center, which is always a treat. And I had the first opportunity ever to wrestle in Arkansas. I flew down to Little Rock and I had a really fun match with Ray Ivy while I was down there. The month of May was something really special for me. I kicked the month off working for the Chaos Wrestling Organization out in Michigan, where I was able to have a match that allowed me to really flex my creative muscles in a way that I haven't in a while, and that felt great. But the big trip of the month was Brazil. This had been a long time, more than a year in the works, more than a year of planning to finally realize this. And this was fulfilling for me as much personally as professionally, and I'll tell you why. There's no country I've wanted to visit longer than Brazil. From a young age, I romanticized what this country must be like. Some of that is down to the transportive lyrics of Rio by Michael Nesmith. In part, it is because when I was in college, David Byrne's record label Luwaka Bop put out a series of Brazilian compilation albums called Beleza Tropical. And I just fell in love with Brazilian music. Even though I only speak a couple words of Portuguese, these songs painted a picture. And while I love samba and bossa nova, tropicalismo is my thing. So the album that I had been hanging on to for years, waiting for the chance to go to Brazil before I listened to it, was Jorge Ben's 1969 debut album. And if you've never listened to Ben before, well, we all love País Tropical. The best track on the album is Take It Easy, My Brother Charles. Take it easy, my brother Charlie. Going there, experiencing the food and the music and the culture and the people, it was so fulfilling. I got to meet friends in person who I'd only known virtually. Got to make a bunch of new friends while I was down there, including a few in Pokemon Go. And especially befriending Bob Jr. was like a really important part of the whole trip to me. This was someone who, prior to arriving there, I knew very little about. And yet I felt like we almost immediately understood each other. We had so much in common. And I kind of felt like maybe I'm past that point in my wrestling career where there's a kindred spirit like that out there that I just kind of like align with so instantly. And this was such a great reminder of the weird way wrestling brings people together. The whole thing was just unforgettable. Then in the month of June, I hit the road out to Indiana for the Fantastic League of Wrestling. And this is a wrestling promotion after my own heart. They've got bright, colorful characters making family-friendly wrestling. Doesn't get much better than that. It was also the only Atomicos match that I did all year long, which felt a lot like putting on a pair of very comfy slippers. On the trip back, I got to make a stop at White River Wrestling, where I caught up with my friend Mr. International Jake Oman in one of the rare instances where Jake is actually standing still and not crossing the globe. It was great to be able to teach at his school. For this road trip, I had, courtesy my friend Michael, the 2023 album by the band Ripe. They used to be East Coast based, but they've since relocated to the West Coast of the United States. They just make super catchy pop songs, although you can definitely tell the members of the band have listened to their fair share of funk. If they're new to you and you're looking for an entry point, best track on this album is Settling. In July, I added Alaska to my collection of state magnets. I went to work for 907 Wrestling. They are the only wrestling company in the entire state, and yet they're still managing to grow month over month and year over year despite some really challenging conditions up there. The whole crew was super welcoming, and I kind of wish I had booked myself an extra day up there, but these trips, they just don't often allow for that sort of thing. Before I left Anchorage, though, I got to have breakfast at a local hotspot called Gwinnie's, which I would absolutely recommend to you. And I would absolutely not recommend the album I had saved for this particular trip. It's McCartney. That's Paul McCartney's first post-Beatles solo album. It's the emptiest album I listened to all year long. August offered me a slightly more relaxed pace, for which I was glad, but I had a bunch of odds and ends booked. Some summer camp shows where I wrestled, got to do a really fun gig for the Special Olympics out in Bolivar, Pennsylvania. By this point, thankfully, the album of the summer had emerged, and it is Duran Jones and the Indications' brand new album, Flowers. If you are unfamiliar with these guys, they sometimes get called neo-soul. I don't know how fair that is, but you could play them alongside some Mayer Hawthorne albums. The whole album is aces. I couldn't even pick you a best track. I love all of it, and I was spinning it constantly for months. August also saw us pass a kind of important milestone. In the evening, night, morning between August 23rd and 24th, the Till We Make It channel crossed 25,000 subscribers. This is what I saw when I woke up that morning. I couldn't believe it. There was a point where I'd almost given up on this being possible. Never in a million years did I think, oh, it'll take about six years is how long it's going to take to cross this milestone. But I felt a real sense of accomplishment when I saw this on my phone. I'm glad August was a little more relaxed, because come September, things started to ramp back up. I started the month by making my first visit ever to Missouri, and I taught a bunch of seminars in Raytown at the XWC. I had a blast out there, so much so I'm planning to go back next year. And they've even made their training center into a Pokestop. Bravo, Kara. Well done. But after Missouri, I had to get ready for Bulgaria, a country where I never thought wrestling would take me. I am an avid fan of The Amazing Race. No matter what is going on in my life, I make it a point to stay current with The Amazing Race. In The Amazing Race 37, the race spends 2 episodes in the Bulgarian capital, Sofia, and I was so charmed by what I saw. When the opportunity to go to Sofia came my way, I wanted to make sure this all came together. Not only did I get to train at the Bulgarian Wrestling Academy, which was wonderful, but I got to perform for the Bulgarian Wrestling League on the first live event staged by Bulgarians in that country for like an incredible period of time. Maybe it was 50 years, 55 years, something like that. It was wild. There are not a lot of other working pros out there that I'd kill to be in the ring with this person. But one such person on this very short list is James Mason. I love the clean, classy, clever style of British wrestling that was popularized on World of Sport. And decreasingly, there are people out there who can do that style credibly. There really are not many. But that is James Mason's, that's his native language. That is his style through and through. So to be put in the ring with him, under the old round system, the Lord Mount Evans system of rules, to do British-style wrestling in front of the Bulgarian wrestling fans, what a treat that was. It was probably my very favorite in-ring experience of the entire year. It was such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and it was getting to the point that I thought I'll never have the opportunity to have a pull around the ring with James, but we did it in, of all places, Sofia. For that trip, I had hung on to Lindsey Buckingham's latest solo album, and this is right before he started having all of his health issues. If you've heard any of his solo albums in the last 10 years, you've kind of heard this album already. But there is a really good track on there that I love called Santa Rosa, and you've been forewarned. If you listen to it, it's going to be stuck in your head all day.
If you go to Santa Rosa, if you go to Santa...
The end of my year was dominated by my South American tour, something I had started piecing together a full year ago. And the shape of the tour had changed a couple times. It went from being 3 weeks long to being a full month long. At one point it was meant to include a stop in Santiago, Chile, and then that got changed for Quito, Ecuador. But finally everything kind of fell into place, and the last week of October I took off for what was the most ambitious tour of my entire career. I've always shied away from long tours. I never understood the logistics of it. I think I couldn't wrap my brain around the idea of washing my clothes in another country. I don't know why. But 30 days on the road, in which time I taught 29 seminars and I wrestled 2 matches, it was a heavy workload. Now, it wasn't as densely packed as Australia. I did learn my lesson, but it was still a very aggressive schedule. And I started in Temuco, Chile, a city that I had visited last year. of all the places that I've been able to visit in recent years, there was no city where I just immediately felt at home the way that I did in Temuco. And a lot of that is down to the people as well as those who hosted me, the team from Hit Lucha Libre. Even before I had left Temuco last year, I thought I would love to wrestle here. And I was so glad that I was able to make that happen this year. One, I love that it was a trios match. Like, I think of that as my match type. I don't think of singles or tags or anything else. Like, a trios match, that's my match type. I also had time to really kind of reflect on what is the experience that I am giving to the people who come to see me. And there was a fan, and I don't mind naming him. His name is Nicholas, who I knew was traveling a great distance to see this match in Temuco, Chile. If you've read Seven Keys, you know the first chapter is called Greatest Hits. I often think of wrestling through the lens of music. As someone who's a little music obsessed, that's like an easy analogy for me to draw. And I thought to myself, what's one of my greatest hits that I haven't played in the ring in a while? And I thought, it's the Swanton. I think my Swanton is pretty top tier, and I stopped doing it back in 2018, maybe the very beginning of 2019. And I thought, I'm going to dust that one off and bring that one back. And I'm glad that I did. And I'm glad that a photographer captured it at like its best possible moment. It looks ridiculous here. I, of course, enjoyed my time in Temuco and with Hit Lucha Libre. And I'm glad that I had saved an album that I felt like had a similar flavor to what my experience in Temuco was like. I kept hold of Resurrection by Los Lonely Boys for quite a while. The best track on this one is called See Your Face, and I'm glad that I got to make that the soundtrack to my week in Chile.
Hey there, it's been a while.
By November, the South American tour had moved to Buenos Aires in Argentina. And Buenos Aires is a city that is not hard to fall in love with. Some people call it the Paris of South America, and I don't think that's fair. Buenos Aires is unique in that I don't think it feels like any other South American city, but it also doesn't feel like any European city. And is it some kind of hybrid? Maybe, but I really feel like it is its own thing. There is only one Buenos Aires, and I think you'll know within a day, this place is for me or this place is not for me. I'm glad that I got there a little earlier this time around than last year. So while it's winter up here in the northern hemisphere, it's summer in the southern hemisphere. And it was becoming summer when I visited last time. It was already too hot, like uncomfortably hot for me when I got there last time. So going just a couple weeks earlier in the schedule helped me avoid the summer heat of Buenos Aires. But a couple wonderful things. I had enough downtime to sneak out and play an escape room called The Real Sorcerer, which had unique design, if very basic puzzles that were not particularly challenging. The last time that I was in Buenos Aires, I was listening to a lot of deep house music, and I kind of wanted to keep that tradition going. So I had saved Dim Division by Miguel Miggs. Best track on there is Give Me Something, featuring Lisa Shaw. It's pretty great. And I think I discovered my new favorite dessert in the entire universe. Sorry, Baked Alaska, it's time for you to move along. I'm not even sure what sopa inglesa is, but I do know it's fantastic. By mid-November, the South American tour had moved to Peru, and that's a country I've never been to before, but I've heard a lot about Peruvian food. And if you've heard what I've heard, I'm here to confirm Peruvian food is great. I'm not an adventurous eater. Virtually everything I had was outstanding. Even the purple juice, which is sometimes a soda that they make from corn there, that I had made up my mind I would hate, I kind of loved it. Being in Lima, I suppose if I'd looked at a map I would have realized this, put me basically on the Pacific coast. So my hotel room was just 2 blocks off the Pacific Ocean. I could see the water from my balcony. It had a really nice atmosphere to it. I got to explore the center of the city as well. Tried bartering for goods in an Incan market, not that that got me anywhere. I did see a mind-blowing, like, all-Christmas store that you could just get lost in for days. But the highlight of this part of the tour really was wrestling in a trios match for Los Gladiadores. When I reflect on all the performances that I gave in 2025, I feel very certain that is the match I am proudest of. And that week was really rewarding for a couple reasons, but this is the one I think I want to articulate. Generally speaking, I have a set of very particular conditions if I'm doing fan meet and greets, autograph signings, that sort of thing. And somehow we'd had a miscommunication when I was in Lima, and there was a meet and greet for which people had paid money to queue up and meet me, and I was never told about this. So at some point, someone basically came back and was like, your line is ready. And I felt like, what are you talking about? Well, after we figured out what was going on, I was a little reluctant to just head out and do this, but I felt an obligation. If even one person had paid to meet me, I'm going to go out. I have to. To thumb your nose for any reason at your fans, it's kind of being ignorant of the whole reason that you have a career. It's being a little ignorant of the whole reason you get to do this awesome thing, which lots of other people dream about doing but don't get to do. So it doesn't matter to me how beat up I am or tired or whatever. I'm going to go out. And I'm really glad that I did. It was one of the most rewarding moments of the entire tour. There were so many people in that line who brought like a weird collectible from years ago that I forgot about or couldn't even imagine a fan in Peru would have. People who had very personal stories tied to like my work, whether, it's stuff that I did personally, stuff that I created, characters I came, whatever it might have been. All of it was very, very rewarding and in many cases very touching, and I'm glad that that happened, even if it was an unexpected surprise. For that week of the tour, I had recently discovered a Panamanian artist named Sofia Valdez. She had like a very minor radio hit, maybe in the last year or two, called Handful of Water. But I picked up her eponymous LP, which I think now is about a year old. It's a mixed bag, but if you're curious to explore, try the track Sylvia. Finally, the South American tour delivered me into Quito, Ecuador. Never been to Ecuador before, but I knew enough about the high elevation in Quito that I had to get into town a day before my first seminar so that I could acclimate due to altitude sickness. If you don't acclimate to the high elevation and you start trying to exercise or doing rigorous activity, that's going to kick your butt. And I was doing nothing other than maybe like carrying luggage, and even so, it felt at times like my skull was going to explode. So the first day I had to take it really easy. This gave me a chance to enjoy the album I'd hung on to, Embrace, by German musician Roosevelt. You might have heard of him because back in 2022, he remixed Taylor Swift's Antihero, and that definitely elevated his profile. Like, it's not fair to say he blew up, because he never really did, but he was on the radar in a way that I think he'd always been off the radar. If you want to check him out, the song Luna is the best on this new album of his. Eventually, it was time to go to work up at the Vision Lucha Academy. What I didn't realize about the accommodation that I had booked was it was a solid hour commute up to this wrestling school every day to go to work. What I liked about this was it gave me a chance to see a lot of different sides of Ecuador. Ecuador just wasn't what I expected in any way, shape, or form. I think I just thought it was like mountains, all mountains. No, that's not true at all. And there is a 2-week period here in Pennsylvania where if you know the right farm stand to go to, you can find the rather rare black raspberry. And I make it a mission to find these every summer. I think it is the most delicious fruit on earth. Having said as much, there is something about the fruits growing in Ecuador. They are out of this world. I've never had a raspberry so red in all my life. And toward the end of my time there, I think because of the cumulative effect of the tour schedule, all the travel, and just kind of wearing myself down, my immune system began to fail me. And in the last 2 or 3 days in Ecuador, I got sicker and sicker and sicker. But to the credit of like the luchadors there, they all started bringing me fruit. it was the tastiest tangerine I've ever had in my entire life. So one, the work was fun. That definitely bolstered my spirits because everyone just brought such a positive attitude to the training and they were like eager to learn everything. They just loved everything. But I was disappointed in myself because I wanted to cross the finish line of this month-long tour like a champion breaking through the tape at the end of a marathon. And the truth is, like, I limped across the finish line. By the time we made it back to Quito's airport, I was so sick. It's as sick as I think I've ever been as an adult, shy of like having food poisoning or something like that. And then mounting international travel while feeling ill, especially during the Thanksgiving holiday. Not the best idea. Not recommended whatsoever. I know that for most of you, this is not the content you turn up to Till We Make It for, but in hindsight, it did make me appreciate how much of the wrestling lifestyle I got to lead this year by striking the right balance between what I was doing with the U.S. independence and then all the international work that I had lined up as well. And in years past, I often found that travel was something that I resented. This year, maybe more than any, since I first had the opportunity to wrestle in Germany 22 years ago, this year more than any other really helped me fall back in love with traveling. I think because I got to go so many fantastic places: Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, Canberra, Temuco, Sofia. It was my own amazing race. I had my own season of the amazing race, and it really reinvigorated my love for it. In no small part, this is down to, between my online webinars and my in-ring seminars and just everything that makes up training, I got to teach over 1,000 wrestlers this year alone. I broke my record from last year. I did 120 seminars this year. Even if I never top that number again, even if that record just kind of stands forever, I think that now is starting to mean less and less to me, and how much I'm enjoying living the wrestling lifestyle takes precedent. And this year-long reflection of 2025 has helped draw that into clarity for me, and I hope you enjoyed visiting some of the highlights with me and recounting it all month by month, album by album, tour stop by tour stop. That's how I see what I do, and now you see it from my point of view as well. I hope you have an incredible 2026. I can't wait for my 2026. I'm genuinely excited. I can't wait to share with you where I'm going to be going. I hope it won't be long before I see you between the ropes. Adios, amigo.